welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to today's meeting. My name is Lauren Wallachy, and I'm a Public Information Officer with Caltrans. So we're here to tell you about two Pacific Coast Highway pavement rehabilitation projects and the draft PCH Master Plan Feasibility Study. There's a lot of information to get through today, and we also want to hear what everyone has to say. There's going to be two opportunities for Q&A, one for the pavement projects and then a second one for the draft master plan. We welcome your feedback and input on these two projects as well as the master plan. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Katie Masick.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. So as Lauren mentioned, I'm also a public information officer with Caltrans, and we are together going to be facilitating today's meeting. As you can see from the agenda, there is a lot to cover, and we have several experts here to present information and answer your questions. So Lauren and I will be doing our best to facilitate today's meeting and keep us on schedule. So I just want to acknowledge that much of the route under discussion today is currently not accessible to the public due to the Palisades fire recovery efforts. I understand you may have questions about that, but we are asking that you kindly hold anything related to recovery efforts to the end of today's presentation, and if there's time, we'll try to answer some of those. You may also review Governor Newsom's recent announcement about the reopening of PCH by the end of May, and I will share a link to that in the chat as soon as we get started. Janice, could you switch to the next slide? Thank you. All right, it is important to note that Caltrans has multiple projects devoted to improving safety and ride quality for all on Pacific Coast Highway. In the short term, Caltrans is currently wrapping up director's order projects that started in January 2024 to address some immediate safety items. These include repainting crosswalks, painting speed limits on the pavement, and installing or replacing speed limit and curb warning signs, among other improvements.
Then going into the midterm, there are two pavement rehabilitation projects. One section will be from south of Cross Creek Road to the Ventura County line, and then the other section is from McClure Tunnel to south of Cross Creek Road. And these are two of the projects that we will be going over today. As for the long term, we have our team here to go over the draft PCH Master Plan Feasibility Study during the second half of this meeting. So if you have a question about the two pavement rehabilitation projects, please type it in the chat during the presentation or once it's done. And then please save your questions about the draft master plan until the second half of this meeting. Now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the project manager, Janice Liu, to get us started with the pavement projects.
You're on mute, Janice.
Thank you for letting me know that. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janice Liu. I'm the project manager for these two pavement rehab projects. And along with me, my colleague Refugio, he is the design manager, will be helping me to present the scope of work as well. I'm gonna dive right in. The first project is this, the north segment of the project. This is about 16-mile stretch on PCH, and is going from the south end of Cross Creek Road to the north end is the Ventura County line. Everything is within city of Malibu. The purpose of the project, the main purpose of this project is to fix the roadway. This will extend the service life of the roadway and improve the ride quality, and also will minimize maintenance work, which will minimize maintenance worker exposure. We also understand that there's a lot of safety concern on PCH. We also incorporating and upgrading complete street features and safety features. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Refugio to discuss the proposed scope of work.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm gonna go over the bullet points and the proposed scope of work for this project. The pavement rehabilitation consists of cold plane and overlay with rubberized hot mix asphalt. And as for the complete street elements, we will be upgrading the curb ramps. A total of 22. We'll be adding new sidewalks, 6 new sidewalks. We'll be enhancing existing crosswalk. And we'll be doing audible pedestrian signals, countdown pedestrian signal heads, and bicycle detention. And we'll be adding class 2 bike lanes going northbound and southbound. Regarding safety items, we will be upgrading the guardrail system throughout the project limits. We'll be installing quick curves for traffic channelization in the middle of the median. We'll be adding new lights, 20 new lights from beginning of the project to the end. We'll be replacing or installing new roadway signs, brand new, throughout the project limits. We'll be lengthening the northbound left turn pocket from northbound PCH to southbound Heather Cliff Road. We will also do the same thing on the left turn pocket from northbound PCH to southbound Malibu Cove Colony Drive. We'll be realigning the existing intersection from Malibu Road to southbound PCH, from a skew intersection to a T intersection. And we'll be also doing the same at Civic Center Drive to northbound PCH. Next slide. We have some challenges regarding the bike lane analysis. We would like to have bike lanes, bike class 2 from beginning to end continuous. But there are four, as we can see on the screen, there are four challenges. One is that we require, in order to do that, we need to require widening of the existing road at particular points. And that requires a very thick environmental document and process, and we don't have the time due to the project guidelines and delivery that we committed and we have to deliver. Also, we have right-of-way constraints. We don't own the whole right-of-way and we cannot take it. We have parking constraints. We cannot remove parking. And we have roadway lane width constraints, the actual width of the road. Regarding bike lane analysis, we'll be reducing, where we are putting bike lanes, we'll be reducing the lane width from the typical 12 to 11-foot lanes. And the race median at particular locations, we'll be reducing it from 12-foot to 2-foot median. And the class bike lane, as we can see on the exhibit, there are 22 segments going southbound, 22 segments going northbound throughout the project limits. Going northbound, as you can see on the screen, northbound, there's going to be 7.7 miles of new bike lane, class 2 bike lane. And that's northbound. And coming southbound is going to be 7.1 miles of new class 2 bike lane. Next slide. This is a typical bike lane cross section throughout PCH. And from El Matador to Webway, which is most of the project limits, will have a bike lane southbound and one going northbound. And those bike lanes will be next to the existing shoulder. North of El Matador, we will not have bike lanes, only from El Matador to Webway. Next slide. New sidewalks. We will have 6 new sidewalks. There are locations where we have dirt. We could say dirt sidewalk, or it's not really a sidewalk, where we will be adding new sidewalks. And one is at, as you can see on the top left, at Heather Cliff. There's a bus stop. We're going to be extending the existing sidewalk to a crosswalk so they can go south. Then at Malibu Canyon, between Malibu Canyon Road and John Tyler, then at Cross Creek Road to Webway. Then we will look at the southern portion, at the bottom portion of the slide, from Cross Creek Road to Malibu Road going southbound. Then from Coral Canyon to a portion, to a bus stop. And then as you can see at Bush Drive, there's a bus stop. We are adding also a piece of sidewalk. Next slide. Regarding, there are 2 intersections, like I mentioned before, at Civic Center Drive. We're adding a T intersection, 90 degree. So this is the location where we're adding a T intersection. This is going northbound. Next slide. Coming southbound, a new intersection at Malibu Road. Going southbound, there's a T intersection, as you can see in green. And also we're adding a sidewalk from Cross Creek and to the new intersection, as you can see on the top of the screen. And if you look south from Cross Creek, at the bottom, you can see a line which is green. That's a new sidewalk that we're adding from there to Webway. Next slide. New sidewalk, continuous sidewalk going northbound between Malibu Road and John Tyler, and that's a continuous sidewalk. And that's, I think Pepperdine owns that green area. Next slide. New sidewalk south of Coral Canyon. This is going southbound from Coral Canyon up to, that's a big stretch. I forgot exactly how many feet, but it's a continuous sidewalk that we will be adding. Next slide. And Heathercliff. At Heathercliff, we have a bus stop going northbound. We're gonna add a piece of sidewalk so persons can continue with a crosswalk, and then when they reach the light, they can use the crosswalk to cross and go to the other side on Heathercliff. Next slide. At Bush Drive, there is a bus stop, but there's no sidewalk. It's a little piece. We'll be extending the crosswalk, so it's continuous. So the sidewalk will go to the crosswalk, and then the pedestrian can cross. Next slide. Back to you, Janice, regarding the project schedule.
Thank you, Virgil. So the project schedule, currently we're still in design phase. We're hoping to wrap it up maybe October in the fall 2025. And then construction will start approximately maybe next year's summer. And hopefully we can finish it by summer or fall 2028. We understand that there will be Olympics 2028. We'll have a spec for no work during the summer months from June 1st to September 1st. At that time, there will be no work or no closure during that time. And we'll also work with the city to minimize any impact. That's wrap up our first segment with the north segment. I'm going to dive right into the south segment of the project. Project location for this one, this is about 11.7 mile stretch on PCH, and this one covers from cover 4 cities. On the south end, starting from the south end, is going from Santa Monica and then to the city of Los Angeles, and then to the unincorporated area in Topanga, and then finally to the city of Malibu. Post miles about 35.2 to 46.9. Again, is from McClure Tunnel to South Creek Road. Similar to the other project, the purpose of the project is to fix the roadway, which is extend the service life of the roadway, improve the ride quality, minimize maintenance work and worker exposure. And also, we will also upgrade the complete street features and safety features. I'm gonna hand it back to you, Virgil.
Yes. Like Janice mentioned, the scope of this project is similar to the other project on the north and the north side. But still, I'll go over the key points, which is cold plain and an overlay with rubberized hand mixed asphalt. We're gonna replace the structural section. There are many locations where the pavement is not, the pavement needs to be replaced, not just an overlay, but replace the whole pavement at certain specific locations. So we'll be doing that at this project, especially now that due to the fires, there's a lot of trucks, a lot of doing improvements, doing excavation, hauling dirt from left to right. The pavement is getting damaged. So for this particular project, we will be replacing structural sections at those specific locations. Also, will be there are 30 bus paths that we will be replacing the pavement from asphalt to concrete, which lasts longer. Regarding complete street elements, we will be upgrading 22 curb ramps, ADA curb ramps. We'll be adding 2 new sidewalks, 2 new crosswalks. We'll be enhancing all the existing crosswalks. Since we're gonna do an overlay, everything will be restriped, brand new. And similar to the other project, we'll have pedestrian signals, countdown pedestrian signal heads, and bicycle detention. And regarding the other project, we're also gonna be adding class 2 bike lanes and within the limits of this project. Yeah, regarding safety items, we'll be upgrading the guardrail system. We'll be installing also quick curves for traffic channelization in the median. We'll be upgrading lighting at the 2 tunnels that we have. Roosevelt Tunnel and the Beach Tunnel inside lighting. We'll be replacing also installing new signs throughout the project limits, and we'll be adding CCTV cameras for safety around the Roosevelt Tunnel. And also we're gonna be installing a new signal with its own left turn phase, going northbound and PCH to lot Santa Monica parking lot 3 north, which is on the beach side. The address is 1150 PCH. Next slide. New bike lanes. And this project, due to constraints that we have existing, we will have 5, actually, yeah, 6 new, 5, well, it used to be 6, but now it's 5 lane segments going northbound, as you can see on the exhibit, near from Temescal Canyon to Bay Club, going northbound. That was 1, but we dropped it due to consistent landslides that keep falling into the shoulder, and this is a continuous problem that we have. So as of now, it has been the bike lane has been removed due to safety reasons. And then going northbound, but at the end from Carbon Canyon to Sierra Road, we have a stretch of 1.8 miles. That's a proposed bike lane going northbound. Now coming southbound, there are 4 segments coming southbound from Carbon Canyon to Sierra Road. Then the next, as you can see on the exhibit, which is 1/3 of a mile in length, is between Big Rock to Las Flores Canyon. And then we have another segment close to Peña Road, which is 1/4 of a mile. And then at the end, on the southbound side, from Bay Club Drive to Driftwood Drive, it's a half a mile stretch of a new bike lane. Next slide. Crosswalk and sidewalks, will be adding a new sidewalk and crosswalk at the bus stop of, this is the address, 20356 PCH, and new sidewalk, a new crosswalk, and then we're adding a new sidewalk at the northeast corner of Topanga Canyon and PCH. And then also we'll be adding a new crosswalk at just south of Entrada Drive at the intersection. This is a typical class 2 bike lane cross section and PCH from Bay Club to Driftwood Drive. So within this stretch from Bay Club to Driftwood Drive, we're proposing a bike lane only on the southbound side. And this is a typical. It's only on the southbound side, close to the beach side. And the northbound side, we used to have it, but due to the landslide and safety concerns, we removed it as of now from this project. Next slide. This is another typical cross section for a class 2 bike lane. And at the bottom of the exhibit, you can see this is from Carbon Canyon to Sierra Road. And this typical is for a bike lane on both directions, going northbound and going southbound. And as you can see, similar to other typical sections, the bike lane is between the travel lanes and the shoulder. Next slide. This is the new sidewalk and a crosswalk at 20356 PCH. There's a bus stop, but there's like a dirt. There's no sidewalk, it's just a dirt path. We'll be adding a sidewalk, and then when you reach a certain point, we're gonna have a crosswalk so the pedestrians can cross to the south side of PCH. Next slide. The next slide, this is the new sidewalk at the northeast corner of Topanga Canyon. There is a bus stop, but it's like a dirt path. And so we'll be adding a new sidewalk. And this is the new crosswalk just south of the Entrada Drive and Pacific Coast Highway, the intersection. So it's a new crosswalk. For safety reasons, we're adding this crosswalk. Next slide. And for this project, there are many, we need right away. Either we need temporary construction easements or permanent easements or drainage easements. And this is regarding the sidewalk, the curb ramps, or the drainage systems that we're proposing on this project. So a lot of the work that we're doing at 19 locations, they're outside our right of way. So we need to talk to the respective owners and acquire those rights. So this is like an exhibit showing the 19 locations where we need to work with those particular private owners and have access, either permanent or temporary rights. And next slide, and back to you, Janice.
Thank you, Frigio. So for this project, we're currently in project approval and environmental document phase. We're hoping to wrap it up in a month or so. This phase is to complete the finalize the scope of the project and finish the environmental document. Then after that, we will start design and hoping that we will finish design by end of 2026. Construction is estimated to start the following summer, 2027 to sometime in 2029. That concludes our two presentations for the pavement rehab projects.
Thank you, Janice, and thank you to everyone for listening to this presentation. We have an email for these projects, so if your question doesn't get answered today, or if you just have follow-up questions about this project, please reach out to that email. It's on the screen. Again, repavepch@dot.ca.gov. We're going to open it up to questions shortly, and we will be focusing on answering questions specifically about these two pavement rehabilitation projects during this time.
Thanks, Lauren. For today's Q&A, you can either type your question directly into the chat. You can send it to all panelists, preferably to make sure that we all see it. Or if you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you and you're welcome to answer or ask your question aloud. And we do also, I see some feedback coming in. We'll definitely welcome your feedback in the chat as well and record it in our notes to share with the project team. But due to time constraints, we will not be reading feedback aloud. We'll just read the questions aloud. We do want to wrap up this Q&A by 2 p.m. so we can move along to the draft PCH master plan feasibility study presentation. So if your question doesn't get answered, please feel free to email that repave PCH email on the screen. Oh yeah, and the master plan questions will be addressed after the master plan presentation. So let's focus on the projects we just heard about for this, and we can get started with the Q&A. If we have, I don't see questions. Oh. Lauren, are you able to read those questions? I don't see the name. I don't see those questions in the chat.
If you go to the Q&A section, they're all there.
There's a Q&A. Thank you. Sorry. I thought those were sent to you.
Yes. So one of the questions from Steve Parks asking, could you explain a little bit more about why the pavement rehabilitation project is needed now? And then also asking about excavation for a sewer. I'm not really sure what that's in reference to, but maybe Janice or Refugio, you can talk about that a bit.
Yes, I can add, and then Janice can add in case I miss something. The rehabilitation project is programmed, and we receive funding from the California Transportation Commission, and we have the money allocated, and based on studies, the payment needs to be upgraded. If we don't do that rehab on this project, we don't know when money will be available. Since we receive funding and we have it's already programmed, we need to deliver by a certain day. That's why we need to rehab the pavement. And regarding the sewer, if it's if there's gonna be if there needs to be some excavation regarding to add sewer lines for private use or commercial use, that is possible as long as those respective owners or the city or the owners approach Caltrans to cut across the road. Usually that's done by a permit. That is possible, and that will be allowable if needed.
Yeah, that's correct. The two project has constraint for funding and also schedule.
Thank you, Janice and Refugio. Another question here from Carol Villain. Why are we calling these very basic changes that still prioritize cars over all other modes complete streets elements? Class 2 bike lanes aren't infrastructure.
I can try, and maybe Nick can add later to it, but even though this is a highway and the purpose is to move traffic from one side to the other, from north to south and vice versa, as part of the policy in the state, it is a policy that we also have to do improvements for pedestrians, for persons and wheelchairs, and for bicyclists. It is our policy. Within the roadway itself, when there is an opportunity, we have to implement complete streets.
Thanks, Refugio. I can add on to that a little bit. And hello, everyone. My name is Nick Carmona. I'm a member of the Complete Streets Planning Team in Caltrans District 7. Just to add on to a little bit of what Refugio is saying regarding Class 2 facilities and the facilities, to give a broader picture of the Complete Streets facilities within this project. Some of these features, it is important to remember that the primary asset within this project is a pavement project. So the Complete Streets features that are going into it are those that can be accommodated within the scope of the timeline and within the scope of the actual project itself. So Class 2 facilities were implemented in areas that made sense and that were able to kind of work within the scope here. So while we do have the master plan efforts that are coming up, and they'll be able to kind of explain greater details and kind of give a different view and a more comprehensive look at kind of what some of the different facilities could be in the area. It's important to know that these projects are on a separate timeline, and we're kind of working in what is available within the given scope and timeline. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We've had a couple of questions about this topic, but Lisa Garrett is asking, maybe you can talk a little bit about kind of emergency access and kind of like emergency measures that we're going to take during this project. I know that's a big concern for people, especially with the recent wildfires. So maybe Janice or Refugio, you can talk about that a little bit.
Most of the work regarding the overlay project, that's when we close lanes, either southbound or northbound. And in case of an emergency, the lanes have to be open. But that is why our construction for overlay work is mostly at night. But we will never close PCH completely. If we need to close a lane, we will have a lane open for emergency reasons. We will never close completely because, due to emergency reasons. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was checking to see if there were any more questions related to that while we're here. I see several comments, but I don't see any other questions about it. Okay, so I'm going to go back. We've got quite a few questions in here about biking, so I think I'm going to try to address a few of those at once. I see Caro Villain has a couple about safety with bike improvements and how we're prioritizing safety, and then the direction of the lanes as well, if they're only going one direction. So maybe if we can speak a little bit on why they were chosen in the spots that they are and the directions that they're going. And one more from Caro on, and I apologize if I'm saying that name incorrectly, has the overwhelming support for a true multimodal PCH in the master plan surveys been taken into account with this project? So I don't know if that's a better question for Refugio. Actually, Refugio
Yes.
and Janice, if
Yeah, regarding the project on the north, we have like we mentioned before, 7.7 miles in one direction, 7.1 miles of class 2 bike lanes. So we're adding a lot of bike lanes, and the reason is because we have the space. We have the space and we're reducing the median. And the other project on the south, the road itself is not as wide as the northern part of PCH. The road itself is very narrow. We have slides. We have the mountain, the beach side, and the beach on one side, but on the north we have a lot of segments which we have like a mountain, and there's always landslides. And the road is narrow, so it's not as easy to accommodate class 2 bike lanes. We have a lot of medians that we cannot reduce from 12 to 2 because the median is used for traffic to make left turn pockets into businesses. So the situation is totally different. It will be nice to add more bike lanes on the southern project, but due to all these constraints, as of now, it's only 5 locations. During the design phase, we're gonna see and look and see if we can add more. But as of now, it's limited. But yeah, that's the response. If someone else wants to add a little bit more, thank you.
I also want to add that currently is a class 3. So it's not like we're adding the class 2 and you cannot buy anywhere else. So you just back to the class 3 once the class 2 bike lane is ended. Rodrigo, maybe you can explain a little bit between class 2 and class 3?
Yeah, class 2 is the bicycle lane by itself. It's a bicycle lane for bicyclists, and class 3, you just use your bicycle next to the white shoulder that we have out there, next to the parking vehicles. So that's class 3, is like share the road. Class 3, we can think about it, share the road. Class 2, it's a lane by itself.
Janice Refugio, if it's okay for me to share a little bit more. Hello, everyone. Again, this is Nick. So as we're looking at some of these projects, and I'm seeing some of the questions coming in as well about the master plan, I did want to put a couple of things in perspective as well. So these projects are working in tandem with the master plan as it's kind of being finalized. So doing the best they can to incorporate some of that feedback, but operating on distinctly different timelines. So that is one aspect of this that is taken into account. And then the other aspect of the class 2 facilities is that are being worked into this project. I think that the planning team and the project development team at large are looking at these stretches of class 2 facilities as ways of incorporating and allocating space for cyclists for future projects as they are developed in the shadow of the master plan, which kind of has different envisions and is able to kind of tackle some of those trickier areas that Refugio mentioned within the scope of future projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to make sure that we can get to some of the people who have raised their hands to ask their question out loud. I want to remind everyone that in order to get to everyone's questions, we ask that you keep your questions short. I think Meryl had their hand raised first. Charles or Janice, could you possibly help me out and unmute them?
Yeah, I'll do that right now. Their name has been unmuted.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so going through a couple of the sections, at Heathercliff, your little sidewalk extension goes from the bus stop to the crosswalk. You need to extend that further to the south to at least the first driveway and maybe all the way to Cavallari. That's where Emily Shane was killed a few years ago. I see people stacked up there all the time, traffic whizzing by them, standing in the shoulder, very hazardous. And if somebody doesn't dig the dirt off that shoulder in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to do it myself because you're just pushing people right into the traffic. Sidewalks from Zumarez south to Zuma View Place. There is about a 14-inch shoulder outside the fog line there. That shoulder needs to be widened, and if you can't do it, then there needs to be a sidewalk that goes from Zumarez to Zuma View Place. I have cleared that off for years, starting about 10 years ago with the help of Carrie Bowen, who used to be a director, and then with Caltrans support out of the Los Flores group. So that is one of the most hazardous places for pedestrians on Pacific Coast Highway. South of Paradise Cove, both sides, the shoulders need to be widened at the brush, and some of the dirt needs to be cleared back to allow maximum parking width for pedestrians, cyclists, and exiting the vehicles. There are some areas there that are approximately 7 feet. I measured some of those areas this morning, and I think that a 9-foot minimum should be required. And at that point, you need to excavate over the curb so the doors could at least open. Otherwise, I saw a lady there yesterday right next to the highway with a child in her stroller. So that brush and the dirt, particularly on the north side of the highway there, needs to be cleared back, and also the brush. That needs to be done before the next 2 weeks, before Memorial Day weekend. It was all packed up yesterday as it was a hot day. The Zuma underpass, I don't know what your plans are. That needs to be opened immediately, because since the turn pocket is short going into the Zuma lot, the traffic backs up. It was backed up past Heathercliff on Saturday. Emergency vehicle passed me going northbound in the southbound lanes. That Zuma underpass being closed is a continual and present hazard for everybody that travels Pacific Coast Highway. And so you need to get a loader down there and clean that thing out right away. The water's down right now, so you shouldn't have any water issues. So I don't know where that fits in. Good tunnel lighting. Also, your approach signs coming into the McClure Tunnel need to be enhanced. And also, I'm glad you're going to put a light in down there for the lots. But for this summer, particularly Memorial Day, you're going to have 100,000 people come through the tunnel and not have any parking lots to go into, because they won't be able to flow up PCH. So some great strategy needs to be dealt with for half the Inland Empire coming through that tunnel and being stuck right there. So good luck with that. Okay, that's a start. I'll get off now. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. We appreciate it.
Yes, I would like to point out regarding the clearing of vegetation that overgrows and impedes probably whoever is parking or walking by. I think that's something that Caltrans maintenance, that us who are in contact with them, we will relay that to the maintenance staff. That's part of their duty to keep it clean.
Please do that. And I have done that over the last 5 to 10 years, and the crews have done a much better job. But it goes into factoring in operational shoulders and Pacific Coast Highway if it isn't maintained. So maintenance, it needs to be pushed up the maintenance level. And as soon as it starts to impede, it needs to be trimmed. So I've worked on this for many, many years, and I've written many service requests about it, as I have about all these other issues. But I'm trying to give you the most dangerous areas, which I just pointed out, and also maintenance items that need to be continually addressed. And I mean, I've literally worked on this for 25 years and could take you through everything I've done on PCH. So if you have any questions about any specific area, you're welcome to call me. I'm sure I have supportive pictures for anything I'm mentioning or anything you have questions about.
Thank you. Regarding the sidewalks and the northern project, as mentioned before, we're adding 6 new sidewalks. And based on the question that just came up, there is a potential of probably 3 more. For those locations, I'll check with traffic, and I'll check with our environmental planners or environmental staff. There are locations where we cannot excavate due to archaeological reasons and sensitive areas. But these 3 locations that were just mentioned, which is at Pacific, at Sumirez, and going further on Heathercliff, we'll see. Since we're adding 6, why not another 3? But I cannot say we will add. I have to check with the respective units and see what impedes or what are the concerns. And many times we have concerns regarding environmental and archaeological, and we cannot, since this is within close to the coast, The California Coastal Commission needs to give us permission. Whatever we add, we need to ask them for permission due to anything related with excavation, but we'll look at these 3 additional locations that were just mentioned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And just in the interest of time, I want to make
Yes.
sure that we let the next person speak. I believe that is Wade. That's the next person showing up on my list. Charles, could you please unmute?
Yes. Well, c'est un ami. Try again, well.
You hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Wade Major. I'm a Public Works Commissioner in Malibu. Speaking for myself, but in the past, we've gotten presentations like this for Public Works before they have gone out to the broader community so that you can incorporate the feedback from the Public Works Department and the commissioners. So I'm a little disappointed that the first time I'm seeing a lot of this and hearing a lot of this is literally today, that it hasn't come before our commission, because we could have saved you a lot of time and heartache. So I'll make my comments very, very brief. This is a state highway. It's not bike friendly. So I understand it is state policy, but there is no part of PCH that is bike friendly. And when you put class 2 bike lanes in, you are effectively encouraging and inviting the public. You're telling them, come ride your bikes here. We don't need people being invited to ride along one of the most dangerous routes in the entire state. People will die. People already die too frequently on PCH. We're trying to make it safer. Inviting cyclists like you invite hikers makes no sense at all. I think most of the bike lanes that you're proposing are madness, absolute madness. And I would encourage you and beg you, reconsider every single last one of them. They are not safe, especially going from Carbon to Cross Creek. That stretch makes no sense whatsoever. I like a lot of the sidewalk proposals. That makes a lot of sense. I'd like to know who actually encouraged the reimagining of the main drag through the middle of Malibu around the pier. No one in the community was consulted about this, and that is effectively the center of our community. You need to have a lot of feedback from people before you actually move ahead with anything that has been developed internally. And then lastly, I think there's a real problem with all of this project, all these projects that they're being proposed for a period during which we're still going to be rebuilding Malibu from the fires. You are going to be introducing horrible, horrible choke points if you begin any of these projects before we have substantially rebuilt any of our homes, and especially if you're going to do some repaving and reconstructing of the road, only to have it dug up again when they install sewers, and we're probably going to have a sewer project. That makes no sense. So the stability of the highway is a question, how the seawalls are going to be built. There are tons of questions that are going to impact PCH that are part of the rebuilding process, and that is going to take years. So I would encourage you, as disappointing as this is, go through these design processes, consult with the community, get our feedback, but then table the whole thing. Table it indefinitely until you're able to get a go-ahead from the city that we have gotten through the fire recovery process. We've gotten through the process of shoring up the highway, of seawalls, of sewers, of rebuilt homes, of all that construction. Once that's done, then you should move ahead. But none of this, especially with work that's going to take place on the 405, none of this should take place concurrently, because even if you're rushing it to get in with the Olympics, you're going to create an absolute traffic hell all over Los Angeles, and especially in Malibu on the west side. So please, please don't do this while we're trying to rebuild our society, while we're trying to rebuild Malibu. Thank you.
Thank you, Wade.
Yeah.
We appreciate your feedback. I just want to say as well that we have already had multiple public meetings about these 2 projects. I believe this is our 4th one now, actually. And all of the information is also on our website and posted on social media. The link to that website, the project website for these 2 pavement rehabilitation projects, is in the chat. And I'll make sure to link that again. I think the next person on my list is Bianca. Again, we appreciate you keeping your comments and questions short, as we do have about 13 more minutes left for this presentation before we move on. So to
Lauren,
get to everyone,
can
please
I,
keep your comments short. Thank you. All right,
Lauren,
Bianca,
can I
yes, I can hear
reply
you.
to the previous one?
Um,
Oh, no.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes, I think I came in about 10, 15 minutes late, regarding the Malibu west side, west of, or north of Larigo. And I know there's work being done, just by, Paradise Cove. I wanted to find out what's going on with that. It looks like the hill is coming down and there's a lot of cones going on around that area on PCH.
Yeah, this is Refugio Dominguez. Could that be, because there's another project which is not related to these two projects. There's another project in out there. So it could be that project. We could ask probably our construction engineers if they're familiar with what's happening over there.
Yeah, can you send us an email? We pay PCH and we'll follow up on that.
We'll let you know. We'll let you know why there's activity over there, and we'll talk to our construction engineer, and we'll provide you with the details. What are we doing there, and how long it will take more?
All right, great. Thank you so much for your questions. Again, we do want to prioritize questions specifically about these two pavement rehabilitation projects. Lisa, I believe you're next on our list. Charles, would you help me and unmute Lisa, please? Thank you.
You said you didn't need.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Okay, my question has to do with the narrowing that was mentioned of the median, which in some places is also referred to as a turn lane, in that provides an essential emergency access to fire, ambulance, and police. And that by narrowing that, I didn't hear any consideration of how the emergency vehicles would be able to get through when they're needed.
Yes, this is Refugio Dominguez. The median that we are reducing from 12 to 2 feet is only the raised median. Raised that it has a curb. Most of the locations, I think all of them, but I'll confirm, where we have a median that is used for left turns to driveways or to businesses, that one will stay as it is, because we don't want to reduce that median since it's used for the public or for emergency vehicles. It's only the raised median where we are reducing from 12 to 2.
Thank you for answering that question. I think the next person with their hand raised is Brian.
Ben didn't need.
Good afternoon. I just had a quick question, and if there was a possibility that, because we have some concerns with the location in front of the pier and the traffic light. There's a lot of foot traffic in this area, and just like what Public Works was saying, is that it creates an unsafe condition when you add in bike lanes to this location. We do have residents that live in this location as well, who find it tremendously a real safety concern for accessing their garage. And by adding bike lanes to this situation in this area would only make it more unsafe and make it more difficult to access the residents. Is there any way that you can actually move either the traffic light further down PCH where it's not up against the residences' properties, considering that it does not provide any parking? Because the city of Malibu has a 2 covered parking and 2 uncovered parking spots. Some of the residents do not have access to 2 uncovered parking spots due to the right-of-way constraints of this location. And then, as you guys are aware, the state of California just implemented a new law that prohibits you from parking within 20 feet of a crosswalk, which creates a very creates a hardship for the property owner that's adjacent to the crosswalk, which falls in within that 20 feet requirement. Is there any way that we can actually relocate the traffic light further down PCH that would allow the property owner next door to the pier to have access to their residence and in their garage, and try to create a better and safe access to the garage without having, because there's already a lot of foot traffic there, and then when you put that crosswalk there with it too, it creates it even more unsafe, and then you got the speeding cars that are coming down there. It just makes it more difficult for the residents to access their property. Is there anything you can do as part of either the master plan project or this restriping project that would allow this traffic light to be moved further down PCH where it's safer and it's not adjacent to an area that attracts a lot of foot traffic as well as speeding vehicles? That's my question.
Yeah, I think that's regarding I'm the roadway engineer, regarding the signal, relocating the signal and the possibility and evaluating that proposal. That's traffic design and traffic electrical from Caltrans. They have to do and evaluate it, do a study and see if it's possible and what are the impacts, if there are impacts or not. But that's for those units to internally do an evaluation. Mhm.
I think we have one other person with their hand raised. I think it's B. Neal. I think that's the last person we have.
Hear me?
All right. You should be able to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I simply wanted to follow up on what I believe it was Wade who said earlier, which is that the problem is we have two conflicting views of PCH at this point. On the one hand, it's a highway, and there are people who live in Malibu and commute to Santa Monica, Century City, downtown. And we have people who live in Los Angeles and work in Malibu and come up here, and they use PCH as a highway. On the other hand, or there's actually three interests. We need safety. We don't want more people killed. We need some walkways, sidewalks. But on the third hand, I question bike routes simply because that's recreation. And I enjoy recreation, but I would not think of biking along a highway. And that's the issue. If we wish to turn PCH into a recreational route, that's one thing, but you will impact all the businesses and people who live in Malibu and work elsewhere, or who live elsewhere and work in Malibu. And so that's my concern. And I'm not sure if that's a question or just a concern, but I guess I wanted to get it on the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. I do want to make sure that we get to Andrew, who has their hand raised. We only have about 5 minutes left in this section. So again, please keep your questions short. Andrew, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off that, on the record, many people use their bikes for more than recreation. I personally use mine to get groceries. But my question is, why are the bike lanes not closer to the sidewalk edge with parked cars bordering the traffic instead? Yeah.
Thank you for your question. Refugio Janice, can one of you address that?
Typically, I'll talk to traffic. Typically, we put the bike lane next to the travel lane, but in this case, this is not the first time this question was asked. Also, when we did the public hearing in person in Malibu, I guess like a month ago or 6 weeks ago, this was also brought up, and also in Santa Monica, this was brought up in those in-person meetings. In this case, I'll talk to our traffic engineers in Caltrans and ask them and also our complete streets, if it's possible in this case to move it. If it's possible to move it towards the sidewalk and just flip the parking with the bicycle. uh, if we put it here or there from a striping point of view, there's no difference. I want to look at it if from a safety point of view, if it makes a difference, or if it not. This is the second time that I heard about it. I'll talk to our traffic engineers and we'll go from there. Good question.
Thank you. And I think we have one more person with their hand raised, and I'd love to squeeze you in before that 2 p.m. cutoff. So I think it's Halen. Perfect. You should be able to unmute.
Hi, I think you can hear me. I was wondering why this presentation has not been presented for council, for the City Council of Malibu. I think there's a lot of flaws in it, and it would be nice to have the council weigh in on this.
Can I say something? I think it wasn't me. It was our traffic engineers who have talked to from the city of Malibu. We have a representative. I think he's the city engineer, Rob DeBow, and we've been meeting with him at least every 2 weeks. And I think his job of Rob was our middle person between us and the council. But if a presentation is needed to the council, I think what we should do is talk to Rob and mention it that this was brought up, and if their council is not aware or the rest of the faculty, we should that's why he's our middle person. But the city is aware of it. We had meetings with the city, not me, but or management. Thank you. Thank you.
If
All
we,
right, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Katie.
sorry, can we quickly address the lane widths? If someone can speak about the current lanes widths and how much they're being reduced. So what the lane width is now and what it would be under this proposal. I see several questions about
Yes.
the lane widths in the chat.
The standard lane width. The standard lane width is 12 feet, 12 feet wide lanes. That's the standard. As part of this, what is out there, it could be 12, it could be 13, it could be 11 and a half, it could be 11. It varies due to different, so many projects in the past and overlays. So it's very hard to say exactly what they are, but it varies from 11 to 12. But on this project, as part of this project, we will be making sure that they are 11. If they can be 12, that's fine. But due to the addition of the bike lanes, we have to reduce them. But it will be 11-foot lanes. We cannot reduce them further.
Thank you, Refugio. I want to thank everybody who put a question in the chat and raised their hand. That is all the time that we have for the pavement rehabilitation projects right now. If your question didn't get answered or if you have follow-up questions, please reach out to us at that email that's on the screen, repavepch@dot.ca.gov. We would love to follow up and get your questions answered. Now we're going to go ahead and hand it over to Ryan Snyder, and he'll be going over the draft master plan feasibility study. If you have questions about the draft master plan, you can go ahead and type those questions in the chat and the Q&A during this portion. All right, Ryan, take it away.
Yes, can everybody see the screen with the presentation?
Yes, Ryan, we can see it.
We can see the slide with the next slide. And
Yeah, I
then
think
no
you need to make it
notes.
a full screen or presenter mode.
That's where it's at. It's in presenter mode. Oh, hold a second. Yeah, this is, let me see. How's that? No. I'm not sure why it's not. Why it's showing the next slide. It is in presenter mode. Let me see. How about now? Same?
Oh, yes, Ryan, it is the same. You're showing the slide and the next slide
The
to it.
next slide.
Yeah, if you want to change your display settings, you can go to display settings and change that.
How about now? It's
That's the same one.
now?
No, nothing changed.
I'm sorry. Let me try something else. Um, let me try this. How's that?
Okay, Ryan, perfect.
Yeah.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. Very good. Okay. So this is an overview of the master plan feasibility study. And as we get into this, I want to reiterate that this is a feasibility study. It's a long-term study that highlights some of the things that can be done. It doesn't at this point prescribe exactly what's going to be done, but it shows some of the options that could be done. And along most of the segments, not all of them, but along most of the segments, there are different options. And exactly what will be done later on will depend on which options are selected by Caltrans, the city, and other people. There will be more opportunity to have a say-so in this. We have done pretty extensive outreach. We started off back in the summer last year with community charrette and various workshops. We did 2 rounds of surveys. We have our interactive website. We've had stakeholder meetings with individuals and different stakeholder groups, and we've been posting on social media as well. One of the most important things that I want to highlight is that we've tried to apply a toolbox. We came in here with the charge of making PCH in Malibu safer. It is, historically, it has not lived up to what we would like it to be. The community has been very, very clearly asking for us to do something safer. And so we're trying to do all of these things that we can to make it safer. I also want to point out a number of things that through our community engagement that we've done, we asked the question in our surveys, what about just leaving the highway as it is? And that option came in dead last every time we asked that question. So people want change. I also want to stress that we have limited right of way. And to add something, we have to give up something. So that's the challenge, is trying to balance all of the different goals of making things safer and improving access for people walking and bicycling and using public transit, and making it a nicer community that fits in with the context. So there's a lot of trade-offs that have to be made, and we've gotten pressure from one side asking us that we do this, and another group of people telling us they want something exactly the opposite. So we've had to balance best as we can. But roundabouts are a tool that we're using at 9 different locations, and I will show these locations. We're adding new sidewalks at some places. In some places, we'll have either colored and buffered or protected bike lanes, staggering the parking. And I, like I said, I will show each of these in those locations. These are the 9 locations where we're planning roundabouts. Webb Way is the only multi-lane roundabout in this group. It's also an opportunity to create a gateway to enter the center of Malibu there. But are all these other locations, we're looking at proposed roundabouts, especially at these are T intersections where somebody's pulling out of the side and onto a busy highway turning. So we believe that these will go a long ways in improving safety there. We have proposed some sidewalks, and some of these do overlap with what you just saw in the previous presentation. These are required by Senate Bill 960, which says that we have to provide sidewalks and bicycle facilities on state highways. The one location from Las Flores to Carbon Canyon Road is a place where we're planning to add sidewalks, and no sidewalks exist. A little further north, there are locations where there are sidewalks, but there are also places, spot locations, where there might be a tree in the middle of the sidewalk or a mailbox or something else blocking the sidewalk, and we need to remedy that. We're adding sidewalks across Creek to Webb Way and the beach side. We're connecting to bus stops, and that's where a lot of the overlap with the previous presentation exists. And we'll add angled parking for improving beach access, and we'll see more about that later on. But where we do that, we'll add sidewalks so people have a better way of walking to the next destination. These areas in blue are where we are proposing to add sidewalks. Again, Las Flores to Carbon Canyon, Cross Creek to Webb Way, at John Tyler Drive, there's a bus stop. At Cane and Doom, there's a bus stop. And these other 4 locations at the north end are where we're looking at providing angled parking and adding sidewalks there. We're also adding the buffered colored and or protected bike lanes, physically protected bike lanes, pretty much throughout the entire route. We have the option to provide both among the entire route. And this is another one of those areas where we had a large group of people telling us they only want protected bike lanes and nothing else is good. We had another constituency group telling us that we can't do protected bike lanes. They would definitely oppose any bike lanes that had physical protection. So we're leaving that option open. The one area between Las Flores and the pier is an area where it is going to be protected, not protected, but buffered colored bike lane. And the reason for that is all of the on-street parking there next to driveways, the visibility, site visibility is not at all good. There are quite a few homes that come right up to the driveways come right up to the highway with structures and shrubbery and trees, and people coming out of those driveways could not see a bicycle being there. And with the on-street parking, that creates more visibility issues. So really believe that the best option there is to just have striped and buffered, physically buffered with paint bike lanes in that area. We're proposing to have staggered parking where it makes sense. In the west end, there are places where we've removed parking on one side, and the reasons for that are, number one, we want to eliminate people parking on the mountainside and running across the road. Number two, we want to eliminate people parking on one side of the road and walking along the road in a very narrow strip along the highway. And number three, we do need to make space for continuous bike lanes. The one area, so for the most part, we've preserved parking on the beach side, and where we've eliminated it on the mountain side. The one exception to that is near Winding Way, where the trailhead for Escondido Falls exists. So in that location, we preserved it on the mountain side. It's a greater distance to walk to the beach, and that's where the greater demand would be. So, but not permitting it on the beach side. And then we swap that back to, as we get closer to Paradise Cove, back to the mountain, to the beach side. Once we get west of Trancas Canyon, we're looking at reducing the number of travel lanes to 2, or maybe 2 with some passing lanes staggered. And this gives us the opportunity to add reverse and angled parking near some of these key beaches, El Matador, La Piedra, El Pescador, Nicholas beaches. Also looking at angled parking near Webb Way. And this is to improve access. There are places where we've eliminated parking, as I just noted, but in order to replace what we lost, this reverse angled parking will give us an opportunity to replace some of that parking. So, and actually we're adding more parking than we were removing. At the new pedestrian or improved pedestrian crosswalks, so some places we're just improving the crosswalk, other places we're adding new crosswalks. We're looking at the area, especially between the pier and Las Flores. Those crossings are difficult, and we need to make that area safer. We want to slow the cars down there. We would love to lower the speed limit, but state law prevents us from just posting another sign that we like. So we're looking at different techniques to try to slow the cars down. And at these crosswalks, we're looking to channelize it with these quick curbs, do something like this photo rendering here. Maybe some island, maybe some raised crosswalk, but this sort of treatment we believe will help slow the vehicles down. And if the crosswalks are spaced not too far apart, I think we can help to bring down the prevailing speeds in those areas. Some of the new improved crosswalks we're looking at are at the Rambla Vista bus stop on the north side, or that bus stop might move to Carbon Canyon. We're looking at Carbon Beach East access. There's a beach access there that needs to have a good crossing. Carbon Beach West access, where there are bus stops. We're going to upgrade from the pedestrian hydrant beacon to a full signal, and also studying new crosswalks at Winding Way and Lechuza Beach. Now, these are some of the other crosswalks that the city is already working on at the Moon Shadows bus stop, La Costa Beach access, again, upgrading from pedestrian, and Corral Canyon and Sarah One Trailhead. Those are some other places we're looking to improve the crossing. And this map shows where some of those pedestrian crossing improvements exist. Also looking at gateways, this was something that were quite popular. 3 possible locations for that. Again, I mentioned the Webway roundabout. One perhaps at Sarah Road, and perhaps coming from the south at Rambla Vista. Gateways signal to the motorist that you're entering a new context, and you need to respect that new context. So hopefully we can help to slow the vehicles down. Also an opportunity to incorporate some public art, make the gateway artistic. Now, I want to show some of the cross sections. I have all of the cross sections in here, but in the interest of time, I will show some of the cross sections that we're looking at. And again, there are alternatives for many of these locations. So this is the South City limit to Las Flores Road. This is our first alternative. This is where it's 75 feet. And again, all of these things may change due to anything that happened with the fire. At this location, we would have a separated bike lanes for this alternative on the mountain side, and the beach side, a striped and colored bike lane. We can't have separated bike lanes because that would block off people's access to parking at their homes on the beach side, but on the mountain side, that's a possibility. Another option would be at that same location to have 2-way separated bike lanes on the mountain side. And or a third option would be to have the colored and buffered, painted buffer bike lane on both sides. Las Flores Road to Ramla Vista, we're very constrained here. It's only 77 feet wide. We don't have a lot of space to do what we need to do. We do need to add sidewalks. We do need to add bike lanes. And so here we're proposing to take out the center turn lane to create the needed space. Ramla Vista to Carbon Beach Terrace. This is a residential area. It's about 85 feet wide. This option would have would preserve the travel lanes, would add colored buffered bike lanes, would preserve the parking, and possibly reserve the median for emergency vehicles only. Carbon Beach Terrace to Sarah Road, there are different options, and this is the center part of the city. This is where we had a lot of people tell us that they would like to modify the character to make this more like a main street, to make this more like a boulevard. So we've got 3 different options for this. And again, I want to stress that all of these options involve trade-offs. There's things that we add that people like, and there are things that we take off that others don't want. So here on this one, this is the simplest option, adding the colored buffered bike lanes. And option 2 really goes further to make this more of a main street boulevard. We're substituting planted landscaped islands in the middle for the turn lanes, and having the bike lanes on the side. The third option, I'm sorry, this is this second option here. So again, trade-offs, it looks nice. It does help to slow the vehicles down. It does create a better environment. The trade-off is that the center turn lanes are gone, at least in some areas. The islands could be staggered, but emergency access would be compromised in this particular area. That's part of the trade-off. Another option would be to eliminate parking on street in this area and widen the sidewalks even further. Add outdoor dining space, add more landscaping, and this is the option that does the most for creating a nice atmosphere, a boulevard, Main Street environment. But the trade-off is that the parking is gone. So options for people to consider with pros and cons with all of these. Moving further north, Sarah Road to Cross Creek. One option is the separated bike lanes with the physical barrier. Another is with without the physical barrier, but colored and painted buffer bike lanes in there. Cross Creek to Webb Way. This is an area where it's pretty wide here, and we're looking at adding the angled parking, so there's improved beach access, adding that on the beach side. And these are physically separated lanes for one option. The second option replaces the physically separated bike lanes with just the colored and buffered bike lanes. But we're adding a sidewalk on the beach side in both cases. And now Latigo Canyon this is essentially up to Zuma Beach Road, or up to Zuma Beach. One option is the physically separated bike lanes. Another option is the colored buffered bike lanes. And I want to stress that in this area, we are removing parking on one side. I want to go back here. We are removing parking on one side. We're leaving the parking on the beach side. And then when we get to that area near Winding Way, we're removing parking on the beach side and adding parking on the Winding Way trail side. And again, an option here for colored buffered bike lanes instead of the physically separated bike lanes. Now this is the Zuma Beach area. There's some more space to work with here. This is with angled parking. We're increasing the number of parking spaces. This option here would add physically separated bike lanes and a sidewalk along with the angled parking. This other option would add the angled parking and the sidewalk, but have colored buffered bike lanes instead of the physically separated bike lanes. And then El Matador to the city, north city limits. Again, this is that area where north of Trancas, we're looking at bringing this down to one lane in each direction, or a lane plus some passing lanes. But here's an opportunity to, the extra space gives us an opportunity to add the angled parking, add the sidewalk on that side, physically separated bike lanes, or same thing with the colored buffered bike lanes. Now, those are the linear improvements that we looked at. We also looked at intersection improvements at the intersections, the top 11 intersections that had the most collisions that we looked at. And at each one of these, we're proposing intersection improvements. I'll show you some of the sort of the main ones here. This one is at PCH and PCH and Westward. Whoops, sorry. So one option is to straighten out that intersection coming out there from the north side, the mountainside. Another option is to create a roundabout. Roundabouts don't have to be round, but this option here would change the character of that intersection, and it would eliminate a lot of the conflicts. So there's different things we're looking at for those intersections. Here's the proposed multi-lane roundabout at Webb Way. This is a 7-lane intersection right now. One of the nice things about roundabouts is that we don't need turn lanes. That gives us an opportunity to bring the intersection in some, to add some landscaping and some beautification. And by the way, roundabouts slow the speed at which people travel through the intersections, but they also have about 30% more capacity because you don't have to stop at them. So there's a lot of benefits to roundabouts. And this is a complex intersection here at Rambla Vista and Las Flores. We're proposing a lot of changes to these intersections with sort of extensions of the curbs here. We want to slow the vehicles down. We're looking at new sidewalk over here, especially over the bridge. And I know there are other projects going on at this bridge. Physically separated bike lanes here are a possibility. Median extension here, islands over here, just to slow the cars down, to create a feeling of narrowness and to try to tame that intersection down a bit. So other things that we're looking at, and this is actually maybe perceived as more futuristic, but these things are coming pretty quickly. Vehicle to everything communication equipment can really help us do a lot that we can't do. Our toolbox is limited. We're trying to accomplish a lot of things with a very limited toolbox, but we're adding things to this tool with this communication. The city has gotten permission and state law passed to allow speed enforcement with cameras. So that's starting. Cameras that communicate in real time with the sheriff. So if there's somebody going 80 miles an hour, the sheriff can be notified quickly. Today's technology will allow for communications to warn of safety hazards, but one of the things that we'll need to have is that the greatest benefits will occur when motorists also have the transponders, trans receivers. So the communication goes both ways. Emergency vehicles will be able to communicate to drivers that they need to get through. And in the long run, communications to drivers when they are speeding and even to the extent of modifying the speed that vehicles are able to go. And the city is right now considering modifying all signals to a safety adoption system. So a table with the parking analysis, as I mentioned, we removed parking on, proposing the possibility of removing parking on one side of the highway. And you'll see the on-road spaces lost there. Between the east city limit and the west city limit comes to about 1,375 spaces. But we've gained about 2,275 spaces with the angled parking. So there's a net gain of 900 parking spaces. And we're proposing to add some 300 bicycle parking spaces. And with the bike lanes, more people will bicycle, and it'll make it safer and more possible for people to bicycle. And if they've got a good place to park, we can actually add some more capacity that way. Now we've got some very broad planning level cost estimates here. At the low end, we're looking at 62 million for all of the improvements, again, depending on what gets decided upon. And at the high end, about 268 million. And then we've identified some potential funding sources. There are state and federal sources we could look at. There are local sources we could look at as well. And I want to point out that the timing on this, and we're going to talk about that next, depends on when the funding can come in. The short-term projects, we're looking at maybe the next 10 years or so. A lot of the striping, the speed reduction bars, speed limits, quick curbs, things that can be put in quickly. Some of the single lane roundabouts, some of the colored bike lanes. Medium-term projects could be in the 10 to 20, 11 to 20 year time frame. Accessibility enhancements, more colored bike lanes or separated bike lanes, crosswalks, gateways, some of the things in this list, speed tables, things that will, there's more physical modifications involved, more concrete involved, and then the long term, we're looking at up to 30 years or so, a multi-lane roundabout, a webway, lane reduction on the north end. And we had talked about the possibility of putting in a shuttle system with parking lots along the way, and an option that's in the plan called the National Park-like option, which would actually remove a lane of traffic and make it a bus lane, but would have lots of buses running, shuttle buses, and as I said, parking lots to connect to those. That would take a longer time, primarily to find the funding. Other intersection improvements, including speed cameras, V2X, and signal changes. So that concludes the presentation. And I want to then turn it over to Charles before we begin Q&A to talk about how to comment on the study.
Right, thank you, Ryan. So everyone on the left-hand side is a QR code to log into our website. And on the right-hand side is a QR code that can log into our document itself. And also in the chat, we have left a website that you can log into our website. I'm going to give everyone just a few minutes.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and start some questions?
And yeah, Ryan, I'm going to just show everyone on the website first. This is our FCA's master plan.
Yeah.
It's a study website. And you can find all the information on all the tabs on above and project information. So on the top, go into draft feasibility study. And you can leave us comment in the website. and fit in to participate, you can leave us comment in the website here or in any of the comment box in below. When you see the draft documentation, you can either click on the draft plan or the hyperlink here. And just to show you, that is our draft plan. And we'll have it up until June 9th. So when you have comments, please send it to us either through the website or through our email. Thank you.
Okay. What do we have for a Q&A now?
All right, so I would love to get started with some of the people who already have their hand raised. I believe Joan, I saw your name first. So if we could get you to unmute, that would be wonderful.
Hi, my name is Joan Zoloth. I live on PCH between on La Costa Beach. And it doesn't seem that there's a couple of things that I have about this. One is the fire has happened, and I understand you have had a lot of meetings, but a lot of them have been, and feasibility study pre-fire. And I agree with that last gentleman who spoke in the other part of this meeting, is that this may have to be reconsidered. I know you've done a lot of work on it, this feasibility study, but things have really changed. For example, on the beach side, FEMA requires us to now build higher, which is going to affect the ability to get in and out of our houses. To put any type of bike lane that is not just one that is marked off, but is a permanent barrier. It means we couldn't get into our homes at all, either on the land side or on the PCH side. I don't understand how, if you made above us in Carbon area going towards the city, if there was medians that you couldn't turn there, and then there was a median that you couldn't turn into our homes on La Costa, where are we supposed to get into our homes coming either north or then south? I think this is just going to be complete chaos. I agree with the other person that spoke that said bikes. I mean, I have seen people wiped out with not only by cars on bikes, but also by car doors on bikes. And not everybody that lives on PCH use a garage. Usually the garages are just for one car, and due to the space allowed, and you have to, like myself, park on PCH. Or there's a situation if you have somebody, which you haven't talked about, who is disabled and lives on PCH, how are they supposed to get in and out of their cars with a wheelchair if there is a bike lane there and bikes are whizzing past? I just think there's a lot of issues beyond what has been proposed. I understand there are safety issues on PCH. Of course, everybody on PCH is concerned about the safety of driving on PCH. But I think that some of the things I noticed, even in some of your pictures about barriers, you put a barrier in front of the apartment building down on the beach side, and I'm not sure how they're going to be able to get in and out of their homes to access the condos at the beach side. So I just am not sure whether this has been a clear enough plan. And I think a better way to have gone about this plan is set up meetings with all the stakeholders who live on PCH. I understand you've had meetings, but things have changed since the fire, and talk about what is realistic given all the changes that are going on PCH. So it's more of a comment that I wanted to make than a question, but I just want to see whether, I guess my question is, have you now reconsidered things because the fires have had extensive effect on PCH?
Okay,
or
so
you reconsider?
there's a lot there. I'll try to remember most of your comments. First of all, that section, if you remember the map I showed, there was that green area there on the with the bike lanes where we were not proposing physically separated bike lanes just for the very purpose of access to those garages and homes. So we're not going to be blocking any driveways or homes with protected bike lanes. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. The bike lanes are necessary for people who use bicycles. And again, we've got a lot of people who told us we absolutely have to do something for bicycles. And we also have a new state law that requires us to put some bicycle facilities on the highway. So our hands are a bit tied with that, and we've tried to find the best way to do it. As far as people with disabilities go, I think we've got a real set of improvements here. We're putting in new sidewalks and improving sidewalks where they don't exist right now. That'll be a big improvement. Right now, again, with that section between Las Flores and Carbon Beach Terrace, there's no sidewalks at all. So somebody in a wheelchair couldn't really travel along there. And the bike lanes will actually help people get in and out of their cars. Because right now, if you're trying to get in and out of your car with a wheelchair, you have to open the door into an active travel lane. So this is going to be a lot better. And it's not going to, I don't believe it's going to be a steady stream of bicycles all the time. It will provide a facility for people who want to bicycle, but it's not going to be difficult, I don't believe, to get in and out of cars. So as far as your question is, have we reconsidered since the fire? No, we haven't gotten to that point, but we did, you'll see, add slides in there where we said things may change as we get into design phase because of the fire. Those things will have to be taken into consideration, later on as we get closer to implementation and selection of the actual options that are available here.
Okay, thank you. I see another person has their hand raised, so go to them next. Halen, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm sorry for the delay. Thank you very much, Ryan. Highways aren't designed for parking, and a lot of the safety issues that I'm hearing are tied to cars parked along PCH. If the city of Malibu is willing to explore municipal parking lots with shuttle service, would Caltrans be open to rethinking its current approach to shoulder parking and help us find a safer long-term solution? Because that's also tied in with the bike lanes. You're trying to fit everything in on a finite piece of land, and it just doesn't seem very safe. And also, since the last segment, I spoke to our Public Works Manager, Rob DeBoe, who's wonderful, and he's made it clear that Caltrans has to bring this to council. So I would like to make sure that this stuff comes before council. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and I'll take that comment first. Yeah, we're quite willing. In fact, we've this week been having internal discussions. Does the city want us to bring it to the council or not? And we're quite happy to do that. As far as reconsidering the parking, if we had shuttles and the like, we would certainly consider that, and it would be location specific where we might remove parking to defer to shuttles along there with no parking. There are places, I believe, probably more out on the northern half of things that is more appropriate. I think we would probably run into a lot of opposition if we tried to completely remove on-street or on-road parking in the areas, south of the pier, because there are so many homes there. But Caltrans on things like that, I believe will be somewhat flexible as to what the community wants. If the city and the community really want us to remove parking, I think that would be something we'd have to consider.
Thank you, Ryan. We're going to jump over to the chat quick. We have a question from Paul Grisanti. Has Caltrans done a right-of-way survey? Are you aware that the MRCA is purportedly doing a right-of-way survey?
We haven't done a full right-of-way survey yet. We looked into it, but it was something that could not be done within the course of this plan. And it will require some significant budget to do that. But as we did note in the report, that if the right-of-way survey shows us that we have more space than what we are aware of right now, we can rethink some of the cross sections in here. We went out and physically measured every stretch of the highway from the north end to the south end. And we had to rely on what exists curb to curb or pavement edge to pavement edge. Again, we do know that there is some right of way beyond that, but not knowing exactly what that is, we had to create our plan with that we are sure of. So yeah, and we have heard that MRCA was looking at doing some right-of-way survey as well.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat from Colin. In regards to bike lanes near driveways with limited visibility, is there any way the the bike lanes can be placed closest to the sidewalks?
Well, that's the exact issue there. The right next to the sidewalk, the visibility is horrible. Again, I spent quite a bit of time out there. First of all, there's a lot of driveways. It's one driveway after another. They're pretty close together, and there's not a lot of space between the driveways. But where the driveways exist, a lot of those places have fences and physical structures right up to the highway and shrubbery and that sort of thing right up to the highway. So if a bicyclist were riding right next to the curb and sidewalk, I would be very concerned about visibility. I'm pretty sure that's a recipe for getting cyclists hit coming out that way. Similarly, with the parked cars to their left, and not a lot of space, and again, between driveways, there'll be a site visibility with cars turning right. So we'd have to eliminate some of that parking to make sure there's enough visibility. So, we determined, and I took a good hard look at this, that it's not the best place for separated bike lanes. I really feel that and I'm a big promoter of separated bike lanes. I like to ride in them. But in that stretch, I believe that they are probably not the most appropriate treatment for the bike lane. So I think if we have the colored bike lane with a nice wide buffer, we're looking at 8 feet or so. I think that's a pretty good solution for now.
Thank you. On the topic of parking, has there been a discussion about making these parking spots paid parking, which would help pay for the project and discourage traffic?
There's been a little bit of discussion. We haven't made any decisions on that. It is certainly an option. It is probably a more feasible option where we're adding the angled parking and sidewalks near the beaches to have some sort of payment system. And again, this is one of those issues we heard from people on both sides. Some people think it would be a great way to raise revenue. And I'm personally not opposed to that, but it's a decision we didn't make. But if the city wants to go that direction, I think there's a lot of pros with that. But we also heard from people on the other side, do not charge us for parking. So no decisions made on that, but it's a good topic for discussion.
Thank you. And I don't believe this is in Caltrans jurisdiction, but if you can speak to it at all, Ryan, if you've had conversations about consideration for bike lockers in these plans.
Yeah, we have not had that conversation, but certainly where we're looking at adding the bike parking at the beaches, bike lockers would be an option, would be something that could be considered, you know, higher level of security.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, one more in the chat. Is there an option that provides for an uninterrupted center turn lane to provide a steady flow for emergency vehicles through Malibu?
For the most
From
part,
Lisa. Sorry, she also, I don't know if she wanted to speak or not, but that question is in the chat. So let's start there.
okay. For the most part, we retain the center turn lanes where they exist. There are the one area where we could not do that was again the just north of Las Flores, where it's only 77 feet wide and there isn't space to add the sidewalks and the bike lanes without removing the center turn lane. The other possible location where is the slides that I showed in the very central commercial part of Malibu, and this is I think really a community decision more than anything. If the residents and the people in Malibu really want to make that more of a Main Street Boulevard environment, the center landscape median would be a place where we would remove the center turn lane. But you know, right now it's just an option. The only place where we're definitely removing is, like I said, just north of Las Flores.
Thank you. We've got one more question in the chat, and then we will go back over to the participants who have their hands raised. So quick question back to bike lanes. Are you considering looking into daylighting buffers, keeping open areas around driveways for line of sight?
Trying to understand what daylighting, so making the buffers visible. And okay, can we get some clarification on the question?
Yeah, I'll see if he types anything. Otherwise, we can go over to, oh, actually, he's got his hand raised, Colin. If Charles, if you are able to unmute Colin.
Appreciate the talk again. Yeah, a little bit more about the daylighting. So if you go to cities like San Francisco, I think Los Angeles as well, when you're at a crosswalk, there's I think it's like a 10 or 20 foot red area in which cars are not allowed to park, because there's been lots of research showing that, yeah, you know, you leave that buffer, cars have better line of visibility to pedestrians, so that it reduces the likelihood in which there collisions happen. I'm wondering if like a same sort of philosophy would be approached with drive lanes, where you just don't have a parking spot and then immediately drive lane, that there's like a parking spot with distance, so there's that extra line of sight.
Yeah, that's going to be a design consideration. I personally like that. I think it's something that if we were to put in the physically separated bike lanes, again, right now it's just an option. This plan is a 30,000 foot high level plan that doesn't get into so much of that sort of a design detail like that. But if we were to get to that level and the city's okay with us putting in separated bike lanes, right now the city has told us they would prefer not. But that would definitely be a design consideration. And in addition to that, you know, another feature is to color the bike lanes when you're crossing the driveways or conflict points.
And I see a few people with their hands raised. If your question ended up being answered or you don't have a question, just a reminder to lower your hand so we don't call on you. But otherwise, I think Carl is next on my list. And you should be able to unmute Carl or give your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. First, I want to say, Ryan, thank you for all your input on this. I love the engineer's mind. There's solutions here in the city that we've never considered before. and lots of them are fantastic. I think, as you know, I live on Las Flores Beach, just east of Dukes, about a third of a mile. My biggest concern here is about the overall decision, which I don't know, Ryan, if this is yours or where this comes from, to eliminate all parking on the land side between Las Flores Canyon and the city limits. I think your number was 300 parking spaces. I got to believe you're moving at least 1,000, if not a lot more than that. You know, again, I've lived there, my family's lived there for 70 years. And all those 7 years we parked on the other side of the road because there's not enough parking on the land, on the beach side. And now with everybody rebuilding with garages, I'm fearing that your plan here is going to eliminate about 75 to 85% of the parking on that section of Malibu and cause some significant issues for both the people who live there, well, all three people who live there, their guests and visitors to the beach. So I'd like you to reconsider that as you look through it, and please just reconsider that removal of that as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And you know, to again help you understand the rationale behind that, there are really no destinations or homes on that side except for a couple at the north end, and we really want to discourage people from parking on one side and running across the road. That's really the biggest issue there. And again, needing space for the bike lanes. If we don't remove that parking, we don't have space for the bike lanes, and we're just sort of encouraging people to park and run across the road. And that stretch in there, as I'm sure you're aware, is high speed, high volume, poor visibility with curves. And it's a place where we really don't want people running across the road.
Great. And if anyone hasn't had a chance to put their question in the chat yet, please make sure to do that now. I see we have another attendee with their hand raised. Paul, why don't you go ahead and unmute and ask your question and share your feedback. Thank you.
I am been a resident in Las Flores on Carbon Canyon. Now I live in Malibu West. I'm getting ready to move back to Las Flores. And the options where you talk about removing the center lane, the emergency lane, are going to be a disaster every summer. Because every summer, when the lanes get full and people run into each other, there's no way for the fire department, for the police to get in if that center lane is not open for them to do that. And that'll be a huge loss for us, and it will be a huge net loss for Caltrans and everybody else, because we're going to lose a lot of litigation over that, especially when there's a fire and we're trying to evacuate Malibu.
Yeah.
I've been mayor of Malibu twice. We need that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with that. I mean, it will be a loss, but we do feel that, again, we're under state law. We have to put in sidewalks, and we have to put in bike lanes. And again, thinking of the other side of it is people right now can't walk in that area because there are no sidewalks. So that's what we're looking at. That's the trade-off we're looking at. So I can't disagree with your statement, but you know, it's one of those things where something has to give, and you know, the choices are not good. You know, we could remove parking on both sides instead, and that, you know, is another way of doing that. We could remove a travel lane or two. And that would not be popular either. So whatever we try to do is going to have negative ramifications, and the situation right now without sidewalks and without the bike lanes is not something that, you know, can continue. So I appreciate your comment.
And then Ryan, we have a chat question. Maybe you could go into a little bit about just the funding for, obviously this is a feasibility study, but just like kind of like the funding for it and that situation.
Okay, yeah, there are a number of funding sources that the city's eligible for. Personally, I think the HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program Fund, might be one of the better sources of funding for the city to look into. Unfortunately for the city of Malibu, some of these state funding sources are restricted to disadvantaged communities or priority given to disadvantaged communities, and Malibu will have a tough time competing for those. And a lot of our federal funding right now has been, we're in limbo. We don't know where it's going to be. Now, there's something I mentioned last time. I'm going to mention it again, and I don't want it to be misunderstood. The timing on all of this is dependent on when funding comes in. It's going to take quite a few years. If the city residents of Malibu were willing to set up like a benefit assessment district or pay higher property taxes to pay for it, I'm not insisting that that's the way it be done, but that could greatly speed things up if people were willing to do that. So it's a funding source that has local control to it. And, it's a funding source that could significantly speed things up. There will be some funds coming in from the camera speed enforcement. I don't know how significant those are going to be. And as mentioned earlier, if some of the parking were metered, that's another potential funding source as well. And nobody likes to, pay for things. It's one of those things, but it depends on how quickly city residents want to get this project implemented. We can rely on some federal and state funds. It's just going to take a while.
Thanks, Ryan. We have another question in the chat. Have elevated bike and walk lanes been considered as part of this plan?
No, for cost and aesthetic reasons. And even physical feasibility reasons. I mean, to have something elevated, you need to have ramps that are ADA compliant, that are 450 feet long. And, there would be access issues as well. If you had elevated bikeway and walkway, how would you get down? So there's a lot of issues, but no, that was not considered.
All right, I see two other people have their hands raised. I believe they already asked questions, but we'll go ahead and unmute them. We can start with Joan.
Hi, I just wanted to follow up on what you said about the area along PCH between La Costa, which is there are sidewalks there. I don't know if you have been out before the fire, but also there are still there since the fire. There were sidewalks. In fact, there was a sidewalk in front of our home. And I just want to point out it was very difficult to get my mother, who was in a wheelchair, in and out of the car because we had to park along PCH. Therefore, we would have to walk her into PCH to get into our garage. Therefore, your idea that it would be safe, we'd be walking a potential disabled person into a lane where there are bikes going very fast. So I think that has to look at again. And like I said, there were sidewalks. I just want to be aware of it along La Costa. And so therefore there was room for, you're saying there's not enough room. I think we need to preserve a turn lane in front of our homes to in and out of the area of from Dukes going north to Carbon, so we can get in and out of our homes safely. Because at one point you said you weren't going to take out our turn lane, but then you just said it's a special situation at that point, and you would have to take out the turn lane. So I'm confused.
Now that segment between Las Flores and what is it? Carbon Canyon?
Yeah.
There are very few sidewalks.
No, we have
Any.
in front of our house.
Yeah, a big, I mean, we did go out and field check. A lot of that has no sidewalks. If they exist, then that'll help, but for the most part, sidewalks do not exist there. And for somebody with disabilities, this is going to be a big benefit. And to your point about the bike lanes, would you rather have somebody coming out of a car into a high-speed travel lane or into a bike lane? I'm pretty certain that you're going to be a lot better off coming into a bike lane.
Right. Just another reminder, if you haven't put your question in the chat, please do so now. The next person with their hand raised is Paul. So, Paul, why don't you go ahead and unmute and ask your question? Thank you.
I can't help but revisit the lack of center turn lanes. It's going to be disastrous. If you want to make all the people on the ocean side of the street not be able to access their properties, great, that's perfect. Then they need to drive to the next turnabout, next roundabout, and come back to the property. But that's not going to work. And when there is an emergency, and there are emergencies, even if they're just little thunder benders, the emergency people come in, they can't get through the gridlock. And you should visit Malibu during this summer when the road is open and go, what the hell were we thinking? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is asking a clarifying question, Ryan. So just to clarify, there is no set funding or start date for the feasibility study. So this may be years before it starts. Can you clarify that? And maybe you can even, again, re-emphasize what you've already stated before.
Yes, that's true. There's no funding set aside yet. There are other stages that we'll have to go through. We'll have to go through project approval and environmental documentation. We'll have to get funding, approved. So there are a number of steps before we're going to see any of this implemented. I guess this is the 30,000 foot view, the high level planning view. We assessed what is feasible. And at the next stages, decisions will have to be made as to what gets funded.
Great. Thank you so much for clarifying, Ryan. Oh, let me check. Someone's asking, are there any parts of this project that would take priority once it kind of goes through those construction and all those design phases and everything? Is there a part that would be prioritized, for example, the roundabouts?
Yes, and we didn't prioritize during this stage, but that would be one of the next things is to, what is most important to the city and the community? What would they like to see done next or first, really? But no, I could see some segments coming in earlier than others.
All right. Well, I do not see any more new questions or any more hands raised. So I again want to thank everyone for coming and engaging with these projects. Again, if there are any future questions about the pavement rehabilitation projects or the draft master plan feasibility study, please reach out to those respective contacts. A recording of this meeting will also be available on the Caltrans District 7 YouTube page in the coming days. And you can always visit the engagement portal to learn more about the feasibility study. The link has been put in the chat, and it will also be put in the YouTube description. Other than that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thank you again for attending.